Hello everybody, Steely here today with a guide for you on Skotizo. I personally really enjoy this boss, so I thought I would throw together a guide. We're going to talk about all things Skotizo, everything you need to know, and I'm going to throw you two different methods, one being the melee method and the other one being the ranged method. So we're going to dive right into it and talk about what we need to do this boss. So the first thing to talk about is the requirements. There aren't really any hard requirements for this. I do recommend having at least 75 plus in your combat stats to make this fight a lot easier, and you will need 75 attack if you are going to be using the Arclight. The only other things to note are that you do need access to the Catacombs of Kourend, and you will need a Dark Totem. Now, in order to acquire a Dark Totem, you are going to have to get 3 different pieces, a base, a middle, and a top, and then you are going to have to combine them together in order to make the totem, and then you're going to use that on the altar, which is inside of the Catacombs of Kourend. Now, as far as I'm aware, you do not need to be on a Slayer task to get these Dark Totem pieces. However, they're not a super often drop. They're pretty rare. They do drop every single time that you kill a monster that is a bigger, badder variant while you're in the Catacombs. So if you are trying to farm for these, killing monsters in the Catacombs on Slayer task and hoping for the bigger, badder variant is going to be your best bet. Otherwise, you are going to have to go and farm some of the monsters inside of the caves and hope that you get these Dark Totem pieces to combine them to make a Dark Totem. Moving into the gear side of things, I'm going to cover the melee gear here first, and then we'll dive into the range gear. So on the melee gear side of things, you want to have a high magic protection, so something like Blood Moon, or high melee DPS, so something like Bandos. I choose to opt to go for the Bandos setup with my max DPS, and then I just pray melee and hope that I don't get totally wrecked by magic. It seems to work pretty well for me. But yeah, if you want to protect yourself using some sort of a magic defense would be the best bet. Your best in slot for weapon is either going to be the Ember Light. If you don't have that, then you're going to want to go with the Arclight. Those are going to be the best method for melee in terms of damage to Skotizo. They are also going to allow you to one-hit the awakened altars when they appear, so that is my recommendation. If you don't have the Arclight or the Ember Light, you can opt to use an Obsmumpton's Fang or a Rapier or Mace or any of those things. Skotizo doesn't have a particular weakness, so any type of weapon will work, so go with what you've got. But ideally, hopefully, if you're at this point in the game, you have an Arclight. If you don't, I'd recommend saving your totems until you get an Arclight, just to make this fight a lot easier. On the range side of things, you're going to want to go with your best DPS range gear, because the range gear is already going to provide you with magic defense. So just wearing your best ranged setup is going to work wonders. Ideally, best in slot is going to be Twisted Bow, but we all know how expensive that is, so Scorching Bow is going to be your next best bet. I choose the Bow of Ferdinand because I don't have the Scorching Bow just yet, and if you don't have any of those options, a Toxic Blowpipe will work just fine. I use that as my spec weapon when I'm using a range setup, so I will opt to go for the Toxic Blowpipe when I'm out there killing Skotizo. So my personal melee gear setup, I will rock an Arclight. I'm using a Bandos Godsword for my spec weapon. I've got Bandos Chestplate, Bandos Legs. I've got Primordial Boots, Ferocious Gloves. I've got my Berserker Ring. I'm rocking the Helm of Natiznot upgrade with the Face Guard, and the Fire Cape and Amulet of Torture. So whatever your best in slot DPS for melee is going to be what you want to do here. So that's my personal setup. And then on my melee inventory, I've got my Defender and my Arclight hanging out. So what I do is I run in, I dump my specs, and then I swap to my Arclight Defender. I've got a super combat potion. You can use a Divine if you want. That's what I go for. You don't have to, however. A normal one will be just fine. I carry an Anglerfish because what I do is I pre-pot, I eat the Anglerfish, and then I go into the altar. Keep myself with some Manta Rays and some Crombons, so I have some combo eats if I need. Couple of prayer pots. I usually bring multiple of Dark Totems. You don't have to do that, but I like to bring a couple because I'll just run them back to back. I'll bring in Thralls, a teleport out, and then a stamina potion is recommended as well. Now for my range setup, I'm rocking crystal armor and a bofa. If you don't have this, like I say, your best DPS ranged gear with a toxic blowpipe will work just fine. I've got the backpack, I love the backpack. I've got the necklace of anguish, I've got the ranged boots here, the Pegasians, I've got the archer's ring, and then I'm rocking some Barrows gloves. So again, this is a pretty pricey setup. If you don't have this, go for your best in slot ranged gear and you should be just fine. On the ranged gear inventory side of things, I'm packing a blowpipe for my spec weapon because it will heal my character and I like that. I also bring the Arclight, and I recommend that you do as well, for one-hitting the awakened altars. You've got your divine ranging pot or your ranging pot, whatever you prefer, and then the same amount of food and prayer pots as I did for melee. I've got my thralls. If you have thralls, it's a great option. Teleport in and out, and of course my stamina potion as well. In terms of how to get there, the Catacombs of Kourend are located in the Kingdom of Greater Kourend. The easiest way to get there is going to be the Kourend teleport, or if you have the Xerix talisman, you can teleport there using the Xerix heart teleport. If for some reason you don't have those two unlocked, the Lovacaine minecart network is also going to be a great option. It's pretty close to the city, so you can opt to do that as well. If you don't have that option, then your next best bet is probably going to either be the Watson teleport, which is just south of Greater Kourend. An alternative to that, you can use the Fairy Ring teleport, which is way over by the Chasm of Fire. That's DJR. So you can use the Fairy Ring teleport, or potentially, I guess you could go to the library with the Arceus spellbook and run south. Those ones are getting pretty far out there, so I mean, hopefully you've got the Xerix talisman. If you don't, spend some time, get the Xerix talisman, or unlock the Kourend teleport so that you can teleport straight there, because the Catacombs of Kourend are literally right next to those two teleports. Once you get there, you are going to want to investigate the statue. Once you have the statue there, you should be able to go down and underneath. And then you're going to use your totem on the altar that is right there, dead center in the catacombs. When you use the totem on the altar, it will open the room to Skotizo and teleport you inside. Now let's talk about the fight. I'm first going to cover the melee method, and then I'm going to cover the ranged method after that. So starting off with the fight with the melee method, you're going to drop down into the fight. Hopefully you're potted and ready to go. Turn on your prayers. You want to pray melee. Now, if you have the option, you're going to want to pray piety. If you don't have the option, pray your next best melee attack bonus prayers. Then you're going to attack Skotizo. I usually dump my specs, switch over to my Arclight, and then keep attacking. I will wait for 2 to 3 altars to awaken. If you're a lower level, you may want to just go out and kill 1 altar at a time. But for me, I wait for 2 to 3 to spawn, and then I run around the room in a circle, killing off the altars as I go. Make sure that if you are out of melee distance, that you are praying mage. You do not want to be out of melee distance and praying melee, because you will get hit very hard with mage. And then you go back to attacking Skotizo and just rinse and repeat. You do want to ignore the minions. There's no benefit to killing them, so honestly, I pay very little attention to them. There's really no reason to kill them, just ignore them. If you're in melee distance, you're praying melee anyways, and the minions will not do any damage to you. If you're running around the map, the minions move very slow, so again, the odds that they're going to do damage to you is very, very low. So don't worry too much about that. Just focus on Skotizo and focus on the altars. The altars will reduce your attack damage the more of them that are out there. So that's why you want to kind of kill them when there's 2 or 3 of them at max. But you can opt to just run down and kill 1 and then run back to Skotizo. Whatever your preference is, just keep in mind the more altars are, the less damage that you're going to do. Now moving on to the ranged method, It's going to be very similar. The only difference is that you're going to swap to protect from magic and then use your best ranged prayers. So instead of praying melee and being in melee distance and then praying magic when you run away, you're just going to pray magic the whole time and make sure you don't get into melee distance of Skotizo, which shouldn't be a problem. Skotizo will only attack you with magic if you are at distance, so you shouldn't have to worry about anything there. The only thing that might get you is the minions, because you'll be praying for magic. You might take a little bit of chip damage from the minions, so just keep that in mind when you're doing the boss. And then the exact same process. So you're going to pray magic, attack Skotizo, wait for a couple of altars to awaken, kill the altars. At this point, you're going to have to switch to your Arclight if you want to kill the altars, so that you can one-hit them, and then switch back to your ranged weapon and continue attacking Skotizo. I keep my blowpipe for when I lose a little bit of health, and then I can use the blowpipe spec to heal my character instead of eating food, which allows me to just continue to DPS the boss. Of course, if you have the thrall option, make sure you're spawning your thralls at the beginning of the fight. That will help with some added DPS. But as you can see with the Bofa and Crystal Armor, Skotizo is really no match for me. It's like, honestly, it's kind of a joke. So if you don't have the Bofa, I imagine the fight would be a little bit more difficult for you. I didn't even need to kill the altar. I just did it for the sake of showing you in the video that you can swap to the Arclight and one-hit the altars. So ranged method works just as good as the melee method. So it's really up to personal preference what you want to do, because both are going to work just fine. And that is pretty much all that you need to know about Skotizo. There's really not a complex fight here. If you have decent gear, you're going to be just fine. If you don't have decent gear, I'd recommend that you just stack up totems for a while until your combat stats are a little bit higher and wait, and then go in there and dust Skotizo so you have a little bit of an easier time. I waited. I think I saved like 5, 6, 7, 8, or 10. I think it was quite a few. Like, I had quite a few of them stacked up. So if you are going to take on this boss, I would just recommend saving up the totems, get your combat stats up there, and then choose one of the two methods, or play with both of them. Have a little bit of fun. I kind of alternate sometimes. I'll play with ranged, and then I'll go back and film with melee when I have a few. Pick whatever you feel most comfortable with, and yeah, farm the boss. Get that Skotos pet, or get some of those nice hard free skills. So hopefully this guide has helped you a little bit. It is honestly one of the easier bosses in the game, and if you did find this helpful, remember to hit the little like button for me, please, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see some of my other videos, other guides, other things that I put together, and thank you very much for watching. Good luck, gamers!